our big list of bad addresses. The last one is, the election's November 8th. By 11 a.m. November 9th, they have to post the election day voter roster. It'll take us 24 hours. By noon on the 10th, we will hand to every Republican candidate on the ballot the list and all the information of everybody who voted illegally in the election. And with that Brownsville case now is case law, they can sue to have those elections overturned. This is going to be fun. This is going to be fun. So voter registration is a mess, and you've got to get involved. I mean, it's happening everywhere. God bless him, when Bill Ely agreed to take on this project, he talked to a neighbor 2 doors down in his neighborhood. And her sons had moved out years ago. They went to college and moved away, and they're still on the voter rolls of that house. Check your own voter registration. Go to the Harris Votes website, do voter registration, and put in your address. See who's registered to vote in your house. Because I guarantee you, our canvassers, when they call the people and they show the names who are registered at that house, the person says, I've lived here for 20 years. I don't know who these people are. But they're registered to vote at my house. Okay? Check your house. Check your house. Voter registrations are a mess. It's a problem. Mail ballots. Mail ballots are the scourge of election integrity because you cannot get information in real time. Okay? We can't obtain the mail ballot applications or the carrier envelopes until after the election. It's a mess. It's a mess. Okay? So I'll tell you in a few minutes things we've done to deter that. Okay? The big ones. The really big one that no one thinks about is fraud at the polling places. On election day, during early voting, we have to be there. Why did Rodney Ellis, when he was a senator, write the bill to establish county-wide polling, replacing precinct polling? Was it to make voting more convenient for everyone? No. No. When we had precinct-level voting, okay, the judge, the election judge, only had 2,000 to 5,000 names to play with because the precinct is only 2,000 to 5,000 voters large. Now, with countywide polling on election day and during early voting, that Democrat precinct judge has the names and information of all 2.5 million registered voters in Harris County to play with. And they know who doesn't vote. They know who's dead. Okay?
Dead people vote reliably.
Dead people vote. In 2020, in the summer, Chris Hollins, the interim county clerk and crook, sent out illegally 400,000 mail ballot applications to everybody in Harris County over 65. Okay? Within days of that mailing going out, I started getting calls. I got over 80 calls from people living in Harris County at an address to which that mail ballot application was delivered, and who were related to the person to whom it was addressed. And they said, she's been dead for years, but she got a mail ballot application. The next week, I started getting calls from Oklahoma. People say, I moved out of Harris County 10 years ago, and I got this mail ballot application sent directly to my Oklahoma address. Not forwarded, sent directly to my Oklahoma address.
Wow, that's crazy.
Voter rolls are a mess. Voter rolls are a mess. If you want to see a total expose also of the way voter rolls and mail ballots work together, go to www.texastrashtalk.com. That's my wife Colleen's blog. She has 2 incredible exposés of the mail ballot harvesting groups in Harris County. Okay? And Colleen interviews no one. She uses documents only. And she'll show you which campaign is paying for them, how much they got paid, etc. But the polls are a problem. Guys, we've got Democrat judges. Okay, you should know this. We have at least 2 factories in Harris County for fake IDs. They're manufacturing fake driver's licenses. If you're a poll watcher and you're standing behind the clerk watching, you'll see the voter present their screen. They present their driver's license. They scan the driver's license. The voter's name is Jane Doe, and the name that comes up is John Smith. And the clerk just overrides it and lets them vote. That's wrong. It's wrong because we're not there to stop it. We're not there to stop it. We have to be in the polling places as election workers or as poll watchers. We need to be at the early voting ballot board, the signature verification committee, and central count. We have to be everywhere that the ballots are affected or handled. We've got to. This is personal for me. A couple of y'all have already heard this. This is very personal. 2016, 2017, my youngest son, Adam, deployed to Afghanistan. Just as years before, his older brother deployed to Bosnia. Just as their father deployed to Vietnam and their grandfather to the Pacific in World War II. Our fighting men and women go to the other side of the world for a year or more. They deploy to the other side of the world and put their lives on the line for our freedom. But we won't deploy to the other side of the county for one day. For one day to sit in the Democrat poll and prevent this stuff from happening. Shame on us. Shame on us. If you want to thank a soldier, be an American worth fighting for. Be an American worth fighting for. I'm going to make some of you mad. If you're at home on election day, you're part of the problem. Okay? You're part of the problem because you're not out there. To make it worse, if you're at work on election day, you're part of the problem. It's July, guys. Ask for November the 8th off. Put in for that day off now. Don't be at work on election day. Be at war on election day. Amen. Be out there where we need to be.
We need to make election day a holiday.
Prevention. We are the prevention. Okay? So deterrence, prevention. Real-time intervention. Real-time intervention. That means that when the laws are being broken, someone steps in. We are screwed here, people, except for ourselves. Let me explain why. Let's say Bill Ely is the branch manager of the J.P. Morgan Chase Bank on the corner up here 2 blocks away. And because of the economy, he can no longer afford an armed on-premises security guard. Okay? Can't have it. So it's Friday morning, and somebody with a blowtorch and a crowbar comes up to his ATM machine and begins breaking into it to steal the money. What's Bill going to do? Bill's going to call 911. And what does he expect to happen? He expects to hear sirens and see flashing lights. He expects to see cars stopping and armed officers with their weapons drawn getting out of the car to stop the money from being stolen. How do you think Bill would feel if he called 911 to report this crime in progress? And he was told, please go to our online site and fill out a complaint form. We'll review it for a few months, and if we think it's valid, we might pass it on to law enforcement who might do something about it. That's what happens with an election complaint. That's what happens. Months. If you hear a politician tell you that your vote is valuable, you tell them BS on you, because you protect money with armed officers responding immediately, but you do nothing while ballots are being stolen. Nothing happens. Law enforcement doesn't happen. The day before early voting in 2020, I got a call from a lady here in West Houston. She had been to the Food Town Grocery at the corner of Highway 6 and FM 529. She came out of the Food Town and was stopped by a young man and young lady, each of whom was pulling a big wagon full of canvas bags. And they said to her, would you like to earn a $100 gift card? And she said, well, yeah, what do I have to do? Well, just take a handful of these home, sign them, put a stamp on them, and send them in. And she said, what are they? So they pulled out a stack. It was all mail ballots, already filled out. Every Democrat candidate was checked. And they showed her, just check the name of the voter here, fold it up, and before you seal it, sign your name across that seal, and here's the roll of stamps to send it in with. And she said, I don't feel comfortable with that. She went home and called the Harris County Sheriff's Office, who said, we don't do election fraud. We don't do election fraud. Law enforcement ain't coming over the hill to save us. Okay? And then you've got the All-Republican Court of Criminal Appeals hearing a stupid case from Jefferson County, Texas, about one little podunk office, and they used that excuse to tell the Attorney General he can no longer prosecute election fraud anywhere in Texas unless the DA invites him. The cavalry ain't coming. The cavalry ain't coming. Real-time enforcement is us. Well, how do we do that? Well, I've already given you one. Okay? We've got we've created a new position here in Harris County of digital poll watchers. They'll be watching that daily voter roster every day, and in real time, they'll be capturing all the ineligible votes that were cast, giving it to our candidates who can then contest the election. But other things can be done, okay? Back in 2020, Interim County Crooked Clerk Chris Hollins held a press conference. He announced that there was going to be a record number of mail ballots in Harris County for that election. 285,000 mail ballots was his confident prediction. Okay? We knew the Democrats were going to try to use mail ballots as their key fraud that election. So in March of 2020, my wife Colleen published the first of 2 articles exposing the mail ballot fraud ring in Harris County to get started with. And we published that and we said, well, what do we do now? And we said, let's pray. So we prayed. 2 days later, I got phone calls from 4 private investigative agencies. They'd seen the article. They said, what can we do to help? I said, what do you know? How can you get in this? They said, we know where the 2 buildings are, which are the mail ballot factories in Harris County. One's owned by a guy named Womack, and the other owned by a guy named Dallas Jones. We know where those are. And we said, tell them about it. Well, there's buildings, they're 2-story buildings. People come in, they go to the top floor, and they work there all day signing mail ballots, fraudulently signing mail ballots. We know where they are. I said, well, can you surveil them? And they laughed and said, we'll do better than that. So they surveilled these 2 buildings, but they didn't do it clandestinely from 2 blocks away with binoculars. They were on the sidewalk outside the front door of each building with video cameras. They were recording the face of everyone going in there to work. They were taking photos of their driver's licenses. They were making it very uncomfortable to go in and out of those buildings. 2 weeks before early voting began, they shut down both facilities. Thanks to 4 private eyes who said, we're going to do something. We're going to do something. All right, you've all seen the movie 2,000 Mules. We didn't have unmanned drop boxes in Texas, but we had worse. Governor Abbott, in his COVID wisdom, extended early voting by a week in 2020. And then he did something much worse. He changed the rules for dropping off your mail ballot in person. The Texas Election Code says you can drop off your mail ballot in person on only one day, Election Day, between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., and only at the main office of the early voting clerk, which is DEA. One day, 12 hours. Governor Abbott extended it to 62 days. 62 days you could drop off your mail ballot. Well, I sent a letter of protest, got Betancourt involved, got Senator Hughes involved. You guys got to do something about this. And then I just prayed. Prayed. 2 days later, I got a call from a church leader I'd never met before. She said, I hear you need some help with mail ballots. I said, yeah, I need 35 poll watchers who will be around 24/7 at NRG Arena and stop the mail ballot fraud to that venue. She said, give me 2 days. 2 days later, she had me 35 poll watchers willing to go round the clock at NRG. And I trained them by Zoom call on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday nights. And they did it. They did it. They stood at NRG through rain, and through heat, through wind, thunderstorms. They were there 62 days at NRG Arena. Did they stop stuff? You betcha. Cars after car would pull up with bankers' boxes full of mail ballots, filled with mail ballots. And these church poll watchers said, nope, the law says you can only drop off your own mail ballot. That's it. And you must show ID to do so. And the name and signature on your driver's license has to match the name and signature on the carrier envelope. And then you have to sign this form here. It's a sign-in form, signing that you dropped off your mail ballot. They upheld that, and they turned away car after car after car, okay, full of mail ballots to be dropped off. They stopped it. Now, there were a couple of nights it got kind of hairy, and believe it or not, the private detective guys were across the streets from NRG Arena with binoculars, making sure our poll watchers were okay.
Awesome.
They were watching over them. Chris Hollins said 285,000 mail ballots. We got 163,000, which is average for Harris County in a presidential election. We beat them. We beat them without a single act by law enforcement or any elected official. Real-time intervention. Guys, think back to our founding fathers. They didn't ask permission, okay, to write the Declaration of Independence.
Right.
They didn't ask permission to organize the Boston Tea Party. They didn't ask permission, they did it. They said, our freedoms are more important than the consequences. We're gonna do it, okay? When Bill and I first kicked off this canvassing thing for the phantom voters, you saw on the paper, Republican group violating people's rights, BS. At least 6 lawyers have looked at everything we're doing, we're fine. But Rodney Ellis told the county attorney, Christian Minifield, to go see Kim Ogg, the DA, to get a grand jury convened to look into what we were doing. How many have read Alinsky's Rules for Radicals? Rule number 9, the threat is always worse than the actual event. Let's intimidate them. Let's intimidate them. Luckily, I have plenty of private eyes and lawyer friends who work downtown, and so we watched it, okay? So what happened was they went to see Kim Ogg, and Kim Ogg basically blew them off. She said, first of all, what you're reporting is not a crime, and secondly, you have no evidence. You have no evidence. Bring me proof that one of them misrepresented themselves as an employee of the county, now we got a case. But until you do that, if they're following that script I saw, it ain't gonna happen. So then Christian Menifee let another rumor out. They were gonna all appear at the Harris County Republican Party organizing meeting on July 9th at U of H and hand out subpoenas. BS. You can't hand out subpoenas unless you've already filed a lawsuit, okay? Or what's called a Rule 202. You can't do subpoenas. They're not gonna do that because Christian Menifee understands you cannot take civil action against us because you violate something called the Texas anti-SLAPP laws. The Texas anti-SLAPP laws are designed to prevent people from suing citizens who are trying to improve government. Those lawsuits get thrown out summarily by the anti-SLAPP laws. Real-time intervention, it's us. It's us, okay? So, deterrence, prevention, real-time intervention. We've got a lot to do, but we have a lot of tools to do it with. And most of it we have our God-given ingenuity, our imagination, our creativity, okay? It's key, it's key. Guys, ballot security, election integrity is not a on-stage spotlight kind of job. It's usually behind the scenes, very quietly, and no one knows what you're doing. Okay? No one would have known about our canvassing effort except one of our canvassers knocked on a door in Sunnyside with 27 voters registered there, and the person who answered was an employee of the elections administrator. That's how they finally found out about the polling effort, okay? A lot's behind the scenes. Let me just give you a quick example. And this is personal. My first paying job out of college was Army Airborne Ranger Spec Ops LRP team leader. LRP, LRP stands for Long Range Patrol. I led 22 missions, 4 men, into a country where the President of the U.S. and the Secretary of State denied there were any Americans operating. There ain't no Americans there. We didn't wear U.S. uniforms. We didn't carry American weapons. I carried an AK-47 on every mission. And the last thing that happened before we got on the planes to parachute in was they took away our dog tags. Because the President didn't want there to be any physical evidence of Americans working in that country. So if we fell, if we didn't come back from a mission, there'd be no physical evidence. And we knew quite clearly that being captured alive was not allowed. Something happened to us as we pulled off mission after mission. Some pretty hairy stuff. A very deep satisfaction of doing something important that nobody would ever know about except the 4 of us. There's a real satisfaction. Only God and the 4 of us would ever know what we did. And that grew. That became tangible. The only reason I can talk about this now is because Thomas Clancy in his book, Clear and Present Danger, exposed all of our work in Southeast Asia so we can talk about it. But it was real. There's a real satisfaction in doing stuff nobody will ever know about. A couple of examples. From August 2020 to October 2020, there were 4 of us working clandestinely to write the bill that eventually became Senate Bill 1. It was myself representing Harris County Republican Party. It was the Texas Public Policy Foundation. It was Texans for Lawsuit Reform, and it was the Opiella law firm in Austin. We worked for 3 months drafting Senate Bill 1. And the bill that was finally filed that January, 80% of the language was ours. So we got it done, we handed it off, but now it belonged to Senator Brian Hughes. And we got to watch the Democrats go apoplectic over Senate Bill 1. They broke quorum, they fled to Washington, they held press conferences, they yelled voter suppression, and we're all sitting back here laughing, the four of us again, going, gee, no one knows we did that, but it's fun to watch them melt down. Fun to watch them melt down. So Senate Bill 1 didn't pass in the regular session because they broke quorum, didn't pass in the first special session, and Democrats are starting to trickle back. Between the first and second special session, we were doing a project for Mike Schofield, and I suddenly remembered, because I'm old, holy cow, we got another problem. In Harris County, since the Democrats took over in 2019, in every election, we have had more ballots than voters. Another miracle of the loaves and fishes. Every election, there were more ballots cast than voters who signed in. So I approached Senator Betancourt and Senator Hughes and said, guys, I need to add 2 sentences to Senate Bill 1. Just 2 simple sentences, just requiring in every election there'd be a reconciliation of the number of voters and the number of ballots. They snuck it in there between the sessions. Now, because the special session starts all over again, Senate Bill 1 was refiled. It wasn't like an amendment from the floor of the Senate. It was refiled. So these 2 sentences at the bottom of page 38 in an 80-page bill, nobody noticed. They fought over the poll watchers. They fought over the civil penalties. They fought over everything, but not over that reconciliation issue. It sailed through and was finally passed in the second special session. So like a good Army Ranger booby trap, the tripwires were set, the detonators were all primed, and the ammo was all live, all the explosives were live, and it just sat there. Sat there until the March 1st primary. Isabel Longoria had pretty much screwed up everything about the election leading up to that. Okay? Screwed everything up, and it was getting harder and harder for Judge Hidalgo to continue to support her. Especially when the Communist Chronicle even said, sorry, Dems, this mess is not the Republicans' fault. Then on election night, of course, we had to sue because she was not going to finish counting the ballots in the 24-hour period required by law. We had to go to court to sue to give her more time to count the ballots. Took her 41 hours instead of 24 hours, okay? And then came the moment of truth, the reconciliation form. They signed it at 3 o'clock in the morning, okay, on March the 3rd. They're all sleepy, they're all groggy. They signed it and sent it to the Secretary of State. And the next day he called and said, Harris County, you seem to have forgotten to count 10,000 ballots. Boom! Tripwires went off, detonators went off, it was great. Lee Hidalgo went and asked for Isabel's resignation. No one knows who did that. Betancourt knows because he helped me get it in there. But it's fun. There's a real satisfaction in doing things quietly behind the scenes that nobody will ever know about. It is important. It's important. So, real-time intervention, it's up to us. It's up to us. Okay? November 2010. General election, November 2010, Harris County. I'm not with the Republican Party. I'm with True the Vote. The Republican Party came to us and said, would any of you all like to volunteer to be alternate judges at a Democrat polling place on election day? I raised my hand, I said, I will on one condition. Yes, what is it? You have to put me at the geographic center of Sheila Jackson Lee's CDA. Put me there, I'll go. They said, sold. So on election day, November 2010, Democrat precinct chair, presiding judge, Miss Willie Jean Jackson, she'd never even seen a Republican drive by that polling place, let alone come marching in a suit with 2 poll watchers. The school opened the doors at 6 o'clock. We had our first fight at 6:05. Willie Jean put 2 pieces of blue masking tape on the floor, told the poll watchers they couldn't cross that tape. You cannot cross that tape. I told Willie Jean, that's a Class A misdemeanor, $4,000 fine, 6 months in jail. I'm going to call it in right now. She reached to her phone, I raced to my phone. I got to the county clerk first. Okay? And I told him what she was doing. He said, Alan, would you mind please just hand her your phone? There's a guy named Tom Moon, longtime election guy in Harris County. He told her what was right, and she got mad. She said, well, I wish you guys would make it your mind. You tell us one thing on Saturday, you tell us something else today. Because on Saturday, the crooked county attorney, Vince Ryan, is the one who told all the Democrat judges to put the tape on the floor. So she hung up, gave me my phone back, she picked up the blue tape, she turned to me very angrily, I don't know why. And I said, all right, smarty pants, Mr. Election Law, if you know the election law, you know that even though you're the alternate judge, I can make you a clerk. I said, yes, that's true. She says, boom, you're a clerk. You're in charge of the poll books. Throw me in that briar patch. I get to decide who votes and who doesn't. I've got both poll books now, and during that one day, 1,500 people came to vote, and they weren't in the poll book. And I asked everyone the same set of questions. Did you vote here before? Yes. Did you vote here the last election? Yes. Have you moved since then? No. And I got 1,500 times I got to yell, Ms. Jackson, would you please tell this voter where they need to go to vote a regular ballot? Because they ain't going to vote a regular ballot here, only provisional. 1,500 times. Would they have voted if I hadn't been there? Yeah. But what heroic thing did I do? I just showed up. Guys, that's all I did. I did nothing heroic. I just showed up. And that's the game. That's the war. The battle for election integrity is about showing up.
And knowing the laws.
Show up and make a difference, okay? Here's something you need to take into your heart. Elections do not belong to the government. Elections don't belong to the government. They don't belong to the parties, except maybe the primary. Elections do not belong to the unions or the political action committees or the people like ACORN or their new name, Texas Organizing Project. Elections belong to us. We own the elections. It's time we took them back. So I'm going to ask you to do something a little strange as we get ready to do Q&A. Please stand and raise your right hands. Everybody, stand up, raise your right hand. Repeat after me. Attention, elected officials.
Attention, elected officials.
If you will not give us free and fair elections, if you will not secure the integrity of our elections, if you will not enforce our election laws, then we will do it ourselves. So help us God. Please be seated. Closing comments. Some of you are going to leave here today and talk to your family and neighbors and say, hey, I heard a pretty interesting talk from some crazy Vietnam vet. It was interesting. A few of you, though, are going to walk out of here and you're going to hear that little voice inside. You're going to hear that little voice inside you, God prompting you that this is your mission too. You've got a role to play in this mission. When you hear that prompt, please don't ask this question. Don't ask who's going to let me. Don't ask who's going to let me. With God with you, the question you should ask is, who the hell is going to stop me?
That's it.
Who the hell is going to stop me? Thank you all so much for listening.
I'll take some personal privilege on the first question, but I'd like, before I do that, Curtis, stand up. Robert, stand up. Doug, stand up. I may have missed him. Come on, up. Right, so Alan mentioned that project. Oh, Janice, up. Micheline, up. Mentioned that project. These three gentlemen, between themselves, almost hit 600 doors. And huge volume, just these three people alone. All right, so, and then the folks in the back are helping me notarize the proper documentation affidavit. So I want to just give them thanks. It's not just me, I can't do it without these guys. And I'll talk a little bit more about the project during my rant. I won't take this, I want to get to the questions for Alan. Alan, just so this sort of builds on your...
Can they sit down now?
Yeah. So this builds on your point about people going across the county. Guys, we can't get Republicans from where we live to the areas where we need watchers, okay? So I want you to understand the math, right? So Alan, my question to you is, Alan, how many poll watchers could we put at one polling location?
The party can put 2 at every location, and each candidate can put 2 at every location. We got 70 candidates on the ballot, plus the party. We can put more poll watchers than can fit in the room.
Did you hear that? Okay, so that's the first question. Alan, how many poll watchers do we staff in the 2020 election?
In In the 2020 election, with some funding from RPT, God bless it, I have my dirty 30 and my filthy 50. The dirty 30 are the 30 worst Democrat judges who cheat the most on election day. My filthy 50 are the next 50 worst judges. So putting 2 poll watchers at each one of those places is 160 poll watchers. So for the first time in 2020, I had 160 poll watchers out there being paid by RPT who watched all those dirty Democrats.
Right, so again, 160, but we could put 120, 140 at every polling location. There's 800 polling locations on election day, right? And it's not out here where we vote, although it's countywide voting where we need help, right? We need other areas. So even if you're not comfortable going to these other areas, because that's where we really need folks, work locally. What that does is free up time, like me being a precinct chair out here in Fairfield. I think I'm losing my judge. I need to find someone else to replace me so I can go work someplace else. So I need each of you guys to think about that. So, questions? Doug?
Are you gonna do any, or conduct any classes for poll watchers in person? I don't like doing it online, but.
Yes, sir. Check with Harris County Republican Party. I have a schedule. I'll try to send it to Bill. Yes, poll watcher classes have been scheduled starting week after next, and they go the rest of the summer all the way up into October. And we're having them all around the county in person. Now, thank you for that question. Remember this though now, per Senate Bill 1, you now have to have 2 things to present to be a poll watcher. You have to go to the Secretary of State training online and print out a certificate. And you have to do that after September 1st for November. So go to the SOS site, sit through that morning class, you just kind of scroll through and get that certificate printed out. Then you have to have a poll watcher appointment certificate from a candidate or the party. You got to show 2 pieces of paper now instead of just 1.
Okay, the second thing on the voter alliance, the canvassing we did.
Yes, sir.
I went to at least a couple houses that were like halfway houses or drug treatment or something. I mean,
Yes.
just craziness. And they had 8 or 9 people registered there.
Yes.
And none of them were there. None of them lived there.
Yeah.
Who in the hell got these people registered? Just your best guess. How did they get registered at those houses? Who did that? I mean,
Isabel Longoria has been using every penny of money she gets from the Secretary of State to go out and register people who aren't qualified. She spent half the money in high schools trying to register 16-year-olds to vote. Okay?
She paid somebody to go out here and register?
Oh, yes,
We
yeah.
have newsletters,
Yeah.
they email out saying,
Yeah.
hey, we're gonna go to these high schools.
Yeah.
It's
Well, I know,
crazy.
but I mean, like to this halfway house or to
Yes,
this.
I don't know about specific that one. I don't know. That's the next thing. Let me pick up on that for a second, guys. All right, all this is for voter registration challenge. Let me give you some good news. Had a long conference call 3 Fridays ago with one of our major donors in the county, and with a gentleman named J. Christian Adams. He is the head of the Public Interest Legal Fund. Okay, he used to be with the Department of Justice, and Eric Holder refused to allow him to go testify about the Black Panthers in Philadelphia.
That's right.
With the clubs. So Christian Adams resigned his job with DOJ so he could go testify. He now heads Public Interest Legal Foundation, and mainly what they do is they sue counties all across the country for bad voter rolls. Okay? So in 2019, he sued Harris County to get over 3,000 non-citizens off our rolls in federal court, and he won. Okay? Now, in this conference call, he's going to do 2 things. Number 1, he's filing a suit in federal court for the 5,300 people in P.O. boxes that I've challenged. Instead of just voter registration challenge, he's filing a suit in federal court to have that ordered. Second suit he's filing is on the work you're doing, but he's trying something different, which may help all of us. He said, the Canvas stuff is great, you guys are heroes for doing that, but I may have another way to do it. He has a database that includes current records from 20 credit bureaus. He said, Alan, if anyone knows the current address of anybody in this country, it's the credit bureaus, even more than the post office. So he's running all these addresses you guys are checking right now, he's running it through that database. And he's going to use, he doesn't have to have personal knowledge to file a lawsuit, that's just for voter challenges. So he's going to check all the numbers, all the names and addresses we've done against that credit bureau database. He's going to file suit in federal court against Harris County to get all of them taken off the rolls. Now, if that works, now we go on to apartment buildings and halfway homes and drug rehab centers and bread and breakfasts and Airbnb. Now the game is wide open. we can begin filing lawsuits. And thank God we have a local donor who's paying for all of it. He's paying for the lawsuits. So we're gonna get serious now. We're moving just past voter registration challenges to litigation. Okay, but thanks to your work, we got his interest.
Okay, so I have a mechanical question for you. I did the Central County location this last time. Is it normal, because you've done this a lot longer than I have, it seemed like every single ballot was touched no less than 14 times. And that's not including the election workers, I'm just talking the counting people. Each ballot was touched no less than 14 times. Is that normal, all the back and forth and back and forth?
You were at Central Count? Okay, so let me tell you what you would probably say. You weren't seeing every ballot voted. Here's what happened in this last election, last couple. Our election administrator knows nothing about machine maintenance or calibration. So our voting machines have not been maintained or calibrated according to the manufacturer's spec. So what was happening at the polling places was the mail ballots were being fed to the scanner and they were being rejected by the scanner. The scanner wouldn't accept it, okay? In all the polling places where the ballots were accepted, those ballots on election night in Central Count, they're now locked in ballot bags. So what you were seeing at Central Count was the problem ballots. The ballots that had been rejected by the scanners at the polling places. And Central Count, yes, a lot of people handle it because what's required is ballot duplication. So two people have to sit there with the voter's original ballot and create another ballot just like it. And then two other people have to verify that the two ballot duplicators did it correctly. They didn't change a single thing on the voter's ballot. And then one ballot is retired, the next ballot is entered the record. This election was a mess. Normally, we shouldn't have that many paper ballots being handled at Central County. That was an aberration because our EA doesn't know how to maintain or calibrate the equipment. It's a mess. You shouldn't have seen it. You shouldn't have seen it.
Well, I understand. Alan.
Yes, sir.
So I'm gonna veer off a little bit about the clerks.
Mhm.
Okay, I worked elections since 2020, AJ clerk. You get a crew in, everyone wants to work, everyone goes to the class. When they get to the job, oh, I can't work the table. They don't wanna work the e-poll book. Oh, I can only work the scanner. And then you get the one time, I had 7 people on our crew. Okay, 3 days before it was over, 2 bailed out, I have 5. We had 1,000 people voting that day. And what happens is, and when that happens, okay, there's more a chance of things going awry, okay? One time, I was on the table there on the e-poll book for 11 hours straight, with no one else didn't want to do it.
Mr. Rand, is there a question in here?
No.
You can get it out during your rant, but get a question.
Yeah. So, what can we do, okay, to have these clerks, be more validated that they want to show up and they want to do every position there is.
Okay.
We're all getting paid the same.
Let me tell you about the big plot, okay? The big plot on the election administrator position and the Texas Association of Elections Administrators. The big plan is to get the voters out of the election process.
Yeah.
So that the elections administrators can have a permanent staff of people who run and control all elections. The method now is to reduce the number of polling places, so there's fewer places for the citizens to be involved, and then to make it so distasteful, inconvenient, and problematic to serve an election that you quit. Which is why you have 4-hour-long lines on election night to turn in your equipment. Which is why you have clerks that were supposed to work at your place who probably don't even exist and don't show up, so it'll be harder on you. Everything is being done to make it distasteful and unpleasant for us to work the elections. If we quit, they win, because that's what they want. They want to have their own permanent staff running all the elections, and we don't have a say, and we're not involved.
No, I'm never
Yeah,
quitting.
but what you're reporting is not accident, it's deliberate. Okay, done on purpose. Done on purpose. Yes, Doc.
You mentioned earlier about the canvas bags, and you and I have had this discussion. The problem is the canvas bags that these printed paper ballots are in are not serial numbered, they're not marked in any way, and there's absolutely no way that we can be sure that those canvas bags are not opened, ballots taken out or put in, and then put into new canvas bags.
You're absolutely absolutely correct, and we need new legislation. We gotta get to it. We gotta get to it. Again, the election code, it sucks. There's holes in it. There's holes everywhere, and that's another one of them. So thank you, Doug.
There are quite a few, turn me on. Hello?
Hold it close to your mouth.
Would you not videotape me, please?
She doesn't want to.
Oh.
Don't videotape me, thank you.
Try this one.
There are quite a few workers that I know of that work the polls. There are quite a few workers that have worked the polls that we know, and we worked on a team that was a super good Republican team for over 10 years. And a bunch of us were all let go, fired, shall I say, by the Republican Party, by somebody who has some power in the Republican Party. And anyway, and so we are not working early voting anymore. We do work on election day with the same team. But I remember when we were working and those cards, those driver's licenses would come through and a different name would come up. And I reported it to the judge and nothing was done. All they did was give them I don't know what they did. They did whatever it is that they know to do. But this lady right here made a mention. We need to know what the laws are and to stay up with the laws. And the training that the workers get, they need to know what the law says too. And that way it'll make it easier for the poll watchers to know when there's fraud going on. And if the workers are trained appropriately, and they are not being trained appropriately, they have to depend upon the judge.
Okay.
There's a lot to unpack in there, too.
That's all right. I think I got it.
Question?
What's more like a rant? We got
Question?
time for that.
I don't know. We need to get these people
Yes.
back so that they're working, and I don't know what to do to tell you to do it. And,
Okay.
clean out the Republican Party too.
So here's what we're doing on the working issue. You need to contact Sheriff Siegel on that. Okay, I'm no longer directly involved with the appointment of workers. I got too much on my plate. So have someone send an email to Cindy Siegel, chair@harriscountygop.com. As far as the training, you're absolutely right. The county training sucks. Okay, it's horrible. So again, starting week after next, I'll be going around the county doing poll watcher classes. Attorney Sonia Aston, who ran our elections for 8 years under Stan Stanner, was also doing election law classes, and she'll be covering the things that the county doesn't cover. But just so you know, okay, Senate Bill 1, Senate Bill 1 made it a felony to knowingly accept a vote that's not valid or to reject a vote that is valid. So, those people who come in with the fake driver's licenses and they're scanned, and that name doesn't come up, some other name comes up on the screen, if that judge accepts that vote and you were there, you report that judge and have a couple of witnesses, because that's a felony now. That's a felony. So that's guaranteed jail time and some serious fines. So understand that. It is now a felony to either accept a vote that's not valid or reject a vote that is valid. So we fixed that. But now, and Sonia will cover that in those classes. Bill? Who's got the mic?
Me.
Yes, ma'am.
Real quick, you mentioned the training, and from what I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, Alan, we have to, after each election, go through the training, the online SOS training. Is that correct, for each election?
Okay, hang on. The SOS training is poll watcher training.
Correct,
Okay.
that's what I'm referring
And
to.
so, for whatever reason, the current SOS poll watcher class, they say expires on August 31. So you have, for this November, if you want to be a poll watcher, you have to take the class after September 1st.
After September.
Yeah, and I don't know if it will change annually, I don't know that.
Yeah, that's what I just remember because I did it for ESD 9 and,
God bless you.
okay, very good.
Thank you.
So I have a question. You have mentioned a ton of things that we can do to help.
Mhm.
Is there something like a volunteer clearinghouse that lists all these places and who to contact?
Elections@harriscountygop.com. Elections@harriscountygop.com. The party got tired of me complaining about all of our volunteers disappearing into the Bermuda Triangle. So they hired a full-time person. His name is Nolan Schultz, S-H-U-L-T-Z. Nolan Schultz. His only job is steering the volunteers to the right people. And you do that by elections@harriscountygop.com. He's the only one that opens that email. In the back.
I'm sorry, I'm not from Harris County.
Count your blessings.
Your big things don't actually work for us, but I want to know how, 1, 2, 3, I either make the county judge, my election administrator, I want our rolls clean. I know that we have at least 6 people that don't have a right to vote, so can you tell me that answer?
Yeah, sue them. Okay, the Texas Election Code allows any registered voter in any county to challenge the registration of any other voter in that same county. So step 1 is you can file a voter registration challenge. Okay, that's step 1. Step 2, follow up on that challenge, because most of the time they don't do anything. And then you file a complaint with the Secretary of State. I have done that in this case, and so in the next 30 days, there's a lawsuit coming from the Secretary of State against Harris County in state court for them taking no action on my challenges to the post office box people. So, challenge the voter registration, follow up. Okay, now, here's how I got the proof. 60 days after I submitted my challenges, I sent an open records request to the county elections people, and I requested electronic copies of the letters that had been sent to voters as a result of my challenge. The answer I got was, we have no documents responsive to your request, which means no letters are going out. That became my last exhibit in my complaint to the SOS, and that's why they're filing suit.
Other questions for Alan? Going twice? And 3, thanks. Oh, we got one more
I
here?
have one more. So I have one experience where there was some election fraud in my little city, and I did report it to the Secretary of State. They agreed there were misdemeanors that happened, and they said, sorry, it has to be a felony for us to take it up. So what do we do in a case like that?
We work on our legislators to make everything felonies. Guys, you all hear the question, felony versus misdemeanor? When I was with True the Vote, okay, we started in Harris County in 2010. And after that election, we gathered affidavits, notarized sworn statements from all these poll watchers who saw things that went wrong. And I carried them down to our district attorney, okay, a Republican at the time. Now, all these things at the time under the code were misdemeanors, okay? Everything I had affidavits on were misdemeanors. She put her hand on my shoulder and says, Alan, you've done really good work here. We really appreciate it. But all these are misdemeanors. And I have a backlog of 12 months of rapes, murders, and other kinds of felonies. If I devote resources to these misdemeanors ahead of these families who are demanding justice for their children, I'm going to be in trouble. So, best thing you can do, Alan, is to work to make more of these felonies by the legislature. Then I can pay attention to them. That's what you just experienced. Okay? Nobody prosecutes a felony. Nobody does in Texas. Sorry, misdemeanors. Thank you. Nobody prosecutes misdemeanors.
Who told you that, Kim All?
Kim Law doesn't even prosecute felonies.
I mean, who told you that?
No. It was what was her name?
Somebody from the DA's office?
Yeah, it was back in 2010. What's her name?
Oh, okay.
I forgot. I know.
Pat Lycos, maybe Pat Lycos.
Yes, Pat Lycos.
I had an attorney.
It was Pat
and
Lycos.
the Secretary of State awfully told me that.
All right, guys, thank you so much. Wait, one more.
I'm just hoping you have some insider information. I'm just curious. So we were watching a few interviews with Greg Phillips after 2000 Mules.
Mm-hmm.
He said he had something coming up in 6 weeks, which put it this past week. That would be 10 times bigger than 2000 Mules. And I haven't heard anything yet. Is it coming? Do you know what it is?
I truly don't know. When Catherine Engelbrecht and Greg were first starting the 2000 Mules project, we met at a Jason's Deli down in Sugar Land, and we outlined the whole plan. They asked us to poke holes in it, we did. And so we did have a long meeting on that. As far as what's happening right now, okay, Catherine has kind of gone into a hole because she's gotten attacked because of that 2,000 mules. She's getting sued because of 2,000 mules, okay? A lot of people are suing her, so she's in bunker mode right now. What the last thing I heard, and I don't know this to be true, the last thing I heard was they also had tracked, as Colleen does, they tracked the money to who paid these people, okay? And supposedly, it's a well-known list of people. So the financiers behind the mules, supposedly they found who those are, okay? And guys, for most people, you can find it. Colleen finds who paid these ballot harvesters all the time. But others like Soros, who tried to track Soros money, he launders it through 17 stages. It's this organization to that organization. The only one better than Soros was Joe Strauss, former Speaker of the Texas. He laundered it through 18 levels. So that's all I know, Linda, is I hear that it's about the donors, the people who paid for all this. But I don't know that for sure. Just to remember.
Alan, I think they've been busy over in Arizona because there's a lot of fraud
There
going
are.
on in the primary right now. And I know that Carrie Lake's talked about the fact that they brought in Bethany and them to help with that.
Let me make one final comment to close it up. I know a lot of you are concerned about the security of electronic voting equipment, the machines being hacked, being broken into, having algorithms loaded, okay? Here's what I have to say about that. These concerns are all legitimate, they're all valid, they're all good concerns. It's made worse by the fact that our county election authorities and the Secretary of State have done nothing to address this. They've not said anything to help people overcome the concern about the election machine being hacked, okay? I will tell you two issues in that right now. One is that, thank God we don't have Dominion, because those definitely are weak, okay? They're vulnerable. That doesn't mean we're in the clear. We are working hard to keep making it harder and harder to hack our machines. All right, in the last session, we passed a bill. You all know what the logic and accuracy test is? Before every election, every county has to do a logic and accuracy test on its machines. And they do a representative sample of all the voting machines and the tabulating machines, and they actually hold the election. They have to test every ballot style that's going to be on the ballot. Harris County, it was 1,400 ballot styles in March. 1,400. They have to test them all, and it's supposed to work. But now, thanks to this bill, they also have to run the hash code test. The hash code test is a test whereby the county contacts Secretary of State, they go online, Secretary of State gives them a link. They click on that link and they download a program. The program is a detection program. They run the program through a SOS directed sampling of voting machines and tabulating machines, and the program runs for 24 hours. At the end of the 24 hours, on the main screen of the tabulating machine, a number shows up. And it's a very complex number with lots of digits and dots. 127.45.7. They call the Secretary of State and show the Secretary of State the number on their screen. If it matches the number on the Secretary of State's screen, then we're good. That means that what the test is, has any line of source code been changed in any of the machines? And so that says no source code has been changed in any machine. That's at least one step helping, okay? One more step helping. We'll try to introduce two bills this time. Bill number one is to add a forensic image of the election system before and after each election. How many followed the Mesa County, Colorado saga? Okay? Secretary of State called the county clerk, said, Dominion and I are coming down to update your software. County clerk got very, Peters, right? She said, I don't trust this. So she had IT friends of hers take a forensic image of her election system before the SOS arrived. The SOS and Dominion came, they did the software update and left, and she ran another forensic image. 59,000 folders were gone. 59,000 folders, which are required to be retained for so many years under election code, they were gone. So she went public with that. She got thrown in jail. Okay? So, but the forensic image is an issue. So we have a bill that will add forensic image also to the hash code test on top of the LNA test. I have one more thing that I'm working on. This is the document from the Intelligence Community Standards 705.02. It's the standards for the accreditation of sensitive compartmented information facilities, SCIF. It's a U.S. Intelligence Agency code, SCIF. A SCIF building is like a Faraday cage. Nothing can get in, nothing can get out. So the bill has the Secretary of State charged and given budget to do a cost and feasibility study for making every central counting point in Texas a SCIF facility. So not even the Ethernet signals that come through the power cords can get in. Okay? Now this won't happen immediately. There has to be a study first, but it might be damn expensive. But that one more way. Now, the other side of it, people have gotten so frustrated with hearing nothing on the electronic machines, they've all said, let's go back to hand-marked, hand-counted paper ballots. Let's just go back to hand-marked, hand-counted paper ballots. You haven't been alive long enough to remember that the reason in 2001 that Congress passed the HAVA Act, Help America Vote Act, it introduced all these electronic machines, was to fix all the fraud that had been going on with paper ballots for centuries. Paper ballots are the worst. Lyndon Johnson was elected to the U.S. Senate with a box of paper ballots from Duval County that were all forged. All the ballots were in sequential order with serial number, and he became senator. Comedian Al Franken in Minnesota lost on election night. He was declared the loser for U.S. Senator from Minnesota. The next day they found 14 cartons of paper ballots, and he was now the winner. And he was cast the final vote for Obamacare that got it official. We haven't done anything to help paper ballots since 2000. We haven't fixed it. Now I tried last session with India to at least introduce the concept of biometric thumbprints on mail ballots and get that started. But I gotta tell you, in America, it's gonna be real hard to convince people to give up your thumbprint and your retina scan to the US government, or even the state government.
For a driver's license.
Yeah, I know, we've been giving our thumbprints to the driver's license forever. But paper ballots, we haven't done anything to improve them in 25 years. So we have to go back and fix that, okay? All right, guys, Bill, over to you. Thank you.
We're into our rant section, folks, so that for those that don't know how that goes, is you got 2 minutes, put you on timer, any topic, no limits, and say your piece. So we'll run 2 mics around. No, that's good.
Put it back.
Anyone want to rant? All right, I'll start. Wait, I gotta put myself on timer. So make sure we follow the rules. It's not much of a rant, but just an update on the project that Alan had mentioned. So we did start at, like you said, 3,500 homes that had 6 or more, minimum 6 or more registered voters.